My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. O Jesus, today you bring us up the mountain with your disciples in order that we can experience something of your glory, that we can see you raised up from the earth, talking with Moses and Elijah. And maybe in a particular way, when we come to Mass today, we see you raised up in glory in the tabernacle, raised up in glory at two very important moments during the Mass, at the consecration, when we see the host lifted from the altar. And it reminds us in the whiteness of that small host, the whiteness of the transfiguration, and the light that comes to strengthen the disciples in that moment and to help them on the day of the crucifixion, whenever you are raised up on the cross. And so as we see you lifted up in the Eucharist, we see the strength that we will need. Maybe this week we are facing difficult moments, little battles, and the strength that comes in your presence in the Eucharist is there to fortify us. Second moment, of course, the elevation of the chalice, your precious blood, when we adore you. Recently in my prayer, I have been thinking a lot about this, Jesus, at the moment of consecration, since it's a great privilege as a priest to look into the chalice, to see your precious blood, and to say that we are adorers of your precious blood, that we come to adore you in your blood given for us. And so this whole experience of the transfiguration is a gift for us, to see you in glory, to worship you, and to be strengthened by you. Last week I was away for the day hiking with some of my brother priests, and it wasn't great weather, as it typically isn't in Ireland at this time of year. And we were walking in a particularly beautiful part of the world that looks over the loch that separates Ireland from Scotland. Unfortunately, since the mist had come down, we didn't get very much of a good view at all. And as we were sitting having our lunch at a break, we were kind of looking at the trees about 10 feet in front of us, and that's about as far as we could get. And I said, well, we're really in the clouds today, aren't we? To which one of the priests then exclaimed, "And this is my beloved son, listen to him." So we find ourselves a little bit in the cloud, not able to enjoy the view at times. And we can struggle a little bit with that when we can't see around us. When we climb up a high mountain, there's nothing more rewarding than seeing the view, when we can see the efforts that we have put in, that we can look back and say, well, that was a tough climb, but at least when I get up to this point, I can see how worth it was to look back on it all. But whenever we climb the mountain in the fog and in the midst, we don't even get that. We don't get that consolation. And so we might struggle to appreciate exactly what the point of it is. We just arrive exhausted and we don't get the beauty of the view. And I think a little bit this can be our experience in life, that we struggle a little bit to find the way. I think this was the experience for me very much in my 20s. And I've reflected on this a lot, that I think in our 20s, life can be a little bit like walking through the cloud. We've not quite made it yet. We are working, we are going through university or studies, finishing one thing and moving on to the next without having really made it yet. It was my experience certainly in seminary, going through, studying, longing, hoping for the day of ordination, but not quite there yet. Always in training without having arrived. And that can be a little bit like walking up a high mountain at times. And walking not just up a high mountain, but walking in the fog. And we have moments of doubt, maybe even moments of despair, not knowing exactly where we're heading. And we'd love a glimpse of the top of the mountain, or even a little bit of the horizon, to give us a sense of of achievement on that journey, but for some reason we are in the cloud. And that Jesus can be a real struggle for us. Whenever I reflect on these words from Matthew's Gospel of the transfiguration, I see a lot of that walking in the clouds. What must it have been like for Peter and James and John walking up this high mountain, possibly the Mount Tabor in Galilee, which kind of sits looming over the very flat countryside, which they must have seen many, many times in their passing, but not really able to enjoy it to the best of its beauty, walking in the clouds. And it's not so surprising then that when they get to the top and all of a sudden you appear in great glory, they're not ready for that. And they're afraid when they see Moses and Elijah there talking with you. There's something that just doesn't click in their hearts. And we have the words in Matthew's Gospel of the Heavenly Father that come from the clouds to console them because they are afraid. And maybe that can be the experience that we were just reflecting on, not really knowing what this is all about, and our hearts not really being ready for those moments whenever you do reveal yourself to us. It would have been incredible when you think about it, to have seen Moses and Elijah. Think of how often they had reflected on the great stories of Moses leading the people of Israel out of Egypt and leaving the place of slavery with the great hope of coming to the promised land. And how often they read about the coming of the law, the giving of the Ten Commandments on the mountain, and then this long period of wandering through the desert, waiting for the promised land to come, without connecting it maybe to their own experience in this particular moment, that they are disciples, they have been with you, Jesus, on this journey, they have seen many things, but they don't know what this is building up to your cross and resurrection. And so there's a kind of a sense of being with you on the journey, but not getting the full picture. And whenever they see Moses, they could have thought about all of these things, about the great impact that Moses had on the history of the people of Israel. But it just doesn't come in that moment. And the same is true for Elijah, the great prophet, who stands up against the powers of the time, that stands up against the false prophets, and who speaks powerfully the words of God. And they're going to be confronted in a very short time with the powers and the authority that mount against you, Jesus, and they scatter. So even this great moment of glory, it doesn't really sink into their hearts, and there's still a little bit of the cloud that they fail to completely understand until the rising again from the dead. So it's like you're giving them a foretaste, you're giving them something to prepare the way, that maybe does soften their hearts a little bit whenever it does come time for the crucifixion and the resurrection. But there's so much of our journey through life, and even our journey through faith, that is not quite certain for us, and that it awaits a moment of consolation, it awaits a moment of truth to put it all together. Well, the great constant throughout this whole experience of the Transfiguration is your presence, Jesus, with the disciples. And even through their lack of understanding or their fear, you are there with them. And these words which come from heaven, from your Heavenly Father, that direct their hearts ever closer to you, are words of consolation, and they are words of closeness. So no matter how we might feel on our journey of life or our journey of faith, of that we can be quite sure. Even though we might be in the clouds, you are there with us, Jesus, strengthening us for whatever will come. So open our hearts, we open our hearts before you, Jesus, to receive all of the graces that you're willing to give, and that we will truly, on this day of Lent, listen to you. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me during this meditation. I ask your help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, St. Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.